What's happening, everybody? What's good? Joe Nice coming to you as always live and direct on a January 4th, 2021, January 4, 2021, January 4, 2021. I am coming to you live and direct, streaming on multiple platforms today, streaming on the Facebook fan page, streaming on the Facebook profile, and I'm also streaming on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Joe Nice DJ, facebook.com/Joe Nice DJ. Facebook.com/Joe Nice. A lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, a lot that's happened over the past several days. I know this is the first time in 2021 that I will be broadcasting on a day-to-day basis, having this sort of person-to-person social interaction. It's been a while since I've done a live broadcast because I've been busy, been traveling around a little bit. When I mean traveling, not overseas, but up to Baltimore, visited my mom and my stepdad for a couple of days. I also went ahead and attended the Force the Vote protests yesterday and the day before that on Saturday in Washington, D.C. at the Spirit of Justice Park, which is about a 5-minute walk south of Capitol Hill. YouTube talk show host Jackson Hinkle was kind and generous enough to organize the Force the Vote protest. And the reason why we had the Force the Vote protest was to force a vote for Nancy Pelosi, to force the House Democrats, force the House Democrats to have a vote for Medicare for All, on the floor of the House of Representatives. This is something that many of the progressives in the House of Representatives that we've elected, most notably the Squad, we've gone ahead and said, hey, look, okay, yeah, you're running for Medicare for All. Okay, we'll throw our support for you. We'll give you our time. We'll volunteer for you. We'll give you our money. We'll put our energy and efforts, and we'll like your videos. We'll retweet your tweets. We'll do what we need to do to get you in Washington, D.C. That way we can have progressive and populist policies that will serve the masses, not the 1% of the elites. And the Force the Vote strategy was created by YouTube talk show and host and comedian Jimmy Dore. They said, hey, you know what? Let's force the progressives into withholding their vote for Nancy Pelosi until she goes ahead and puts a floor vote on the House of Representatives for Medicare for All. And yesterday the vote happened, and not a single progressive went ahead and withheld their vote. None of them did. These are the same progressives in the House of Representatives that said, yeah, we'll go ahead and, we're going to go ahead and oppose Nancy Pelosi. We're going to go ahead and be some sort of opposition. We're going to go ahead and stand up for the people. We're going to go ahead and fight for the people. Not a single one of them did. And I want all of them out. All of them. All of them. Ayanna Presley, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, who just got sworn in yesterday. Just got sworn in yesterday. I want all of them gone. All of them. Out. 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 All of them gone. All of them. Because if none of them are going to go ahead and make a demand to get Nancy Pelosi to go ahead and put Medicare for All on the floor of the House of Representatives for a floor vote in the middle of a pandemic when 350,000 people plus have died from the coronavirus and over 20 million Americans have been affected by this virus, and we, in the richest country in the world, we can't get health care, I want every single progressive member out. All the ones that call themselves quote unquote progressives, I want them all gone. All of them. Mark Pocan, who is the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. I had never heard of Mark Pocan until about a month ago. Never heard of him. Want all of them gone. All of them out. Out, 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 out. The frauds. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. Because they had an opportunity to do what the Freedom Caucus did with John Boehner. And the Freedom Caucus was so effective that not only did John Boehner relinquish his speakership from the Speaker of the House. This was probably about 12 years ago. He left politics altogether. He left Washington, D.C. with a couple of U-Haul trucks and a Mayflower van. Gone. He left. He was like, you know what? The hell with this. I can't deal with these people in Washington, D.C. I got to do something different. But when it came to the progressives in the House of Representatives to do something, this is a basic low-level demand, demanding Medicare for all, demanding health care in the middle of a pandemic. This is something we should have had years ago. England got the NHS during World War II, if I'm not mistaken. So England's had universal health care for, guys, let me think, about 80 years now, 81 years now. And America still has a healthcare system where now there's over 90 million Americans that don't have healthcare. over 90 million Americans. And before the pandemic, there were about 30 to 35 million Americans that did not have health care. Now we're in a pandemic, your healthcare is tied to your job, you lose your healthcare. And again, and Cat Wells and I, we've done a couple of videos on healthcare. And as I'm sure some of you already know, one of my graduate degrees is in a discipline of healthcare. So I understand the Affordable Care Act a little bit better than most people walking around wherever. And I understand a little bit of the actuarial science behind the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is one of the worst pieces of legislation in the history of American legislation. It's terrible. It's terrible. And what I want people to understand is that a Democrat, in air quotes, Democrat, Barack Obama, gave everybody Mitt Romney's health care plan. And Mitt Romney got that health care plan from a right-wing think tank called the Heritage Foundation. And I'll repeat this again because I think it's important that everybody understands where exactly the Affordable Care Act came from. The Affordable Care Act came from the Heritage Foundation. They're a right-wing think tank. They came up with what's called a three-legged stool model of healthcare. The three legs of the stool are access to insurance, government subsidies, and a fancy rule called the individual mandate. The individual mandate, at least the most important rule of these three rules or of these three pillars. The individual mandate basically says you, private citizen, have to buy a privately owned product. This privately owned product is health insurance. And if you, private citizen, do not buy that privately owned product, health insurance, we, the public, the government, will assess a penalty to you for not buying that privately owned product. I have a Samsung phone, okay, Samsung Note 10. If the federal government said to me, yo, Joe Nice, you got to buy a Samsung phone, or better yet, let me go even a little further. You got to buy a phone. Doesn't matter what kind of it, whether it's a Huawei, whether it's an iPhone, Samsung, HTC, Google phone, one of those burner phones from Cricket, whatever. You just got to buy a phone. What if I said, well, yo, government, I don't want to buy a phone? Federal government comes back and says, well, you know what? Hey, Joe, because since you don't want to listen to us and you don't want to buy a phone from one of these billion-dollar companies, we're going to assess a penalty to you for not buying a phone. Imagine, think about how backwards and crazy that is. That scenario I just provided to you all. Like, wait a minute, I got to be forced to buy a phone? Let me go and leave a more esoteric example. There's a whole lot of people that don't have TVs because, quite honestly, TV is useless. TV is useless, but it's nice to have. But TV is generally useless. Let's say the federal government said, "Hey, Joe, you got to buy a TV, and if you don't buy a TV, we don't care what kind of TV it is, whether it's a Sony, whether it's a Haier, whether it's Vizio, whatever. We don't care what kind of TV you buy, Philips, Samsung. You got to buy a TV. You don't buy a TV, we're assessing a penalty to you for not buying a TV." You know, I mean, people go on these streets like, what the fuck? I gotta buy. I want to buy a TV. I like my streaming internet. I like Roku. I like Netflix. I got a bunch of books that I want to read. I don't need a TV. Could you imagine how crazy that would be? Everything I just described to you is exactly what happened almost 11 years ago with the the implementation of the Affordable Care Act and the individual mandate. What I just explained to you is the individual mandate. If you don't buy, you pay a penalty for not buying. Let's say that again. If you don't buy, you pay a penalty for not buying. That's what happened. So almost 4 years ago, when President Trump came into office, but when President Trump passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, essentially the Republican tax cut, implemented into that was the individual mandate. So what Trump campaigned on a little more than 4 years ago was, hey, I'm going to repeal and replace Obamacare. I'm going to come up with something better. It's going to be the greatest healthcare plan ever. And he didn't do anything. But he knew he wanted to repeal or at least cripple the Affordable Care Act. How did he do that? He couldn't go ahead and take back the government subsidies because that's just way too much work. He couldn't go ahead and say, hey, you know what? This whole improving access through the Medicaid expansion, that's way too much work because then I have to sue states that did accept it, and that's just too much hassle. Oh, this individual mandate, okay. Oh, it's $695 penalty for an individual or a $2,000 penalty for a family. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this a $0 penalty. $0. So you know what? If you don't buy it, your penalty is $0. He's essentially crippled that third leg of the three-legged stool that makes up the Affordable Care Act. So right now, the Affordable Care Act is on life support as we speak. It's on life support. So what did making a $0 individual mandate penalty for families and individuals do to the Affordable Care Act? What it did, it spiked insurance premiums through the roof. Why? Because now young, healthy people that were forced into buying insurance before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 now no longer have to buy health insurance. They don't have to buy into it. So now health insurance companies realize, oh, wow, well, wait a minute. I don't have the money coming in from all these young, healthy people that are buying insurance and never using it. Oh, well, we got to raise our rates. Sorry, we got to raise our rates. So based on actuarial science, the people who are most likely to use health insurance are people who are old and people who are sick. So if you're, let's say, a 60-year-old person who's got a chronic medical condition, your health insurance premiums, your monthly premiums are exorbitantly expensive. Why? Because you're too young to get on Medicare. I'm sorry, Medicaid. Medicare. You're too young to get on Medicare. Medicare doesn't start until you're 65. So you're stuck in that place where it's like, you know what? I'm old and I'm sick and I've got a chronic illness. I'm really paying through the roof. You're paying a whole lot of money and you're not getting much. But on top of that, what many of these health insurance companies also did is said, you know what? Let's go ahead and, in addition to increasing our rates, we're going to go ahead and increase the deductibles for everybody and then increase premiums even more on top of that. So there are people now that might have $5,000, $7,500 deductibles and are paying $750 a month for health insurance. Why even have health insurance in the first place? And those types of health insurance policies are what's called junk insurance. You don't hear the mainstream media talk about this often because it's not really something they just want to talk about. They'll just say, hey, you know what? There are a whole lot of people that lost their health insurance, but they don't get into the granularity of the data or the minutia of the story to understand and explain why people are losing their health insurance or why so many people are just not even losing it or just going without it because it just doesn't make at this point, it's almost not cost effective to have it. So that's what happened. And now in a pandemic, a whole bunch of people lost their jobs. Now what? Now what? You lost your job. You can't, and now many people who've lost their jobs can't afford to go on Cobra. And Cobra is that other insurance plan that you get when you lose your job, and they cut the premiums by a little bit, but you're still looking $450 or $500 a month. If you lost your job, what makes you think you're going to be able to afford $500 a month? And in many instances, those who have lost their jobs, if you were fortunate enough to have employer-sponsored health insurance, in many instances, most of them, the breadwinner of the family or the person who has the health insurance through their employer, typically will have a family plan. So let's say you have a husband, wife, and 3 kids. The wife has the job with the health insurance. The wife loses her job through no fault of her own. Husband loses his job through no fault of his own. And in order to save money, the husband doesn't have health insurance with his employer. The husband signs onto his wife's health insurance policy through her job in order to save money, because you don't want to necessarily be paying monthly premiums or having money taken out of your paycheck from the husband's jobs and the wife's job. So you just want to do it once, not twice. So they'll go ahead and just do it once. Everything goes on the wife. Wife loses her job. Husband, wife, 3 kids. That's 5 people that have now lost their health insurance. 5. So when people talk about, let's say 50 million people or 55 million people have lost their health insurance, That's a whole lot of people and a lot of families we're talking about that have lost their health insurance. We're not talking just adults or people who are 26 years of age or younger who are still on their parents' health insurance. That's a whole lot of people that have lost their health insurance. And this country, the United States of America, that has a gross domestic product of over 20 trillion with a T dollars, does not want to go ahead and pony up the money to make sure every single American has health care, especially in the middle of a pandemic. It's an absolute joke. It's an absolute joke. And Again, there were about 25 to 30 of us out there on Saturday morning around 9:30 in the morning. We marched around, had a couple of guest speakers. Brianna Joy Gray was there. She was Bernie Sanders' former national um, campaign communications coordinator. Lee Camp was there. Jackson Hinkle, who he organized the entire event, he had a couple of words. Savage Joy was there with her story. She was there. Nick Brana, who is the director of the People's Party campaign, Moving for a People's Party, he was there. A couple of nice words. So yeah, there was a lot of people that was there yesterday. I'm sorry, on Saturday. Sunday, same group of people showed up. Convo Couch with Fiorella and Pasta were there. Nico House from Mikasa Sukasa was there. Christina Olivo, she's running for a congressional seat in Miami. She made the drive up yesterday from Miami, and that is not a quick drive. That's a good 15, 16, 17-hour drive. So there was a lot of people that came out yesterday. There's probably about 65, maybe 70 people out there yesterday. And again, there's people out there this morning, not only marching around where there's Spirit of Justice Park near Capitol Hill, but also in front of the UK Embassy yesterday and on Saturday. I think today they were in front of the Justice Department for Julian Assange. The only reason I didn't go on Saturday or yesterday is because I had to drive back to North Carolina, and they were holding a vigil and protesting in front of the UK Embassy. And if you know the geography of Washington, D.C., where we were protesting earlier in the day, basically at Capitol Hill, it's basically southeast Washington, D.C., not too far away from the Navy Yard and the Washington Nationals baseball stadium. The Vice President's house, the UK Embassy is across the street from the Vice President's house. And it's literally the opposite quadrant of Washington, D.C. It's Northwest D.C. and it's about as far northwest in Washington, D.C. as you could possibly be. And I couldn't go all the way out there and then backtrack around south and then get back to North Carolina at a decent hour and hopefully avoid all the traffic. So I ended up skipping out on the Assange situation. But I woke up this morning early, quite early, because I always kind of wake up early, and I watched a couple of different news channels that were broadcasting the Assange situation, and Assange will not be extradited to the United States. Good. He should have never been arrested in the first place. The people that should have been arrested in the first place are everybody that he reported on that committed all of these war crimes. All he did was talk about the war crimes and publish the information on WikiLeaks. And he's currently rotting away in Belmarsh prison. And if you know anything, and there's a bunch of people in the UK that might know about, that are familiar with Belmarsh prison. Belmarsh prison is the worst prison in the UK. It's the UK's equivalent of Guantanamo Bay. And that is where he is now. And he is locked in solitary confinement. They've taken away his winter clothes, and they've and according to various reports, put a bunch of COVID-infected prisoners near his cell. This is what the UK government is doing. And the United States wants to extradite him from the UK. And a judge in the UK said, no, we're not going to do that today. What the judge in the UK should have said was, yo, Julian, here's your personal effects. I'm going to give you a medical check on the way out, because you know what? We actually have healthcare in our country. We have the NHS. And hey, if it could save Boris Johnson's life, it can do some wonders for you too. We've got a bunch of really good private hospitals we can put you up. Hey, you know, the Lister Hospital in the West End of London, that's pretty good. We'll put you over there, get you rested up, and then, you know, we'll get you a one-way ticket to whatever country we want to go to. If you want to go back to Sweden, cool. If you want to stay here, straight, we got you. If you want to go to Mexico, where they've already said they can take you in, perfect. If you want to go to Mongolia, all right, whatever. Wherever you want to go, we've got the money. We'll send you on a one-way ticket and get you out of here. That's what the judge should have done this morning. Instead, the judge said, no, we won't extradite you, but we're going to keep you here for a little bit. The United States federal government is already appealing his case, already appealing the decision, because they want him here in the United States. And if he gets here in the United States, on United States soil, he is a dead man. Assange is a dead man if he ever sets foot on United States soil. So everybody in the UK and around the world, we need to be supporting Julian Assange. We need to support Julian Assange, because Julian Assange is a hero. What he has done for journalistic freedom and freedom of speech. And quite honestly, in the United States, our First Amendment rights, one of the 5 rights that is guaranteed by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution is the freedom of speech. Another right ensured by the United States Constitution is the freedom of the press. If Julian Assange gets prosecuted, tried, and convicted in a United States court, you can kiss those 2 rights that are afforded by the First Amendment of the United States goodbye. Gone. Gone. Because if he goes to jail and essentially dies behind bars, freedom of speech is done, and so is freedom of the press. Done. It's over. I'm going to get to a couple of comments here. That's my man Brian saying, "Hey Joe, happy New Year's to you." What's up, Brian? Good to see you, brother. It's almost been a year since we last seen each other. North Dakota, me, Tony, and Sound. Big show. Pedestrian Lindsay, one of my favorite yogis and one of my favorite people. Tempe, Arizona. Good morning, mate. Taylor McNally, queen of all media, waving her hand, saying hello. Me and Taylor did a wonderful interview. Taylor's awesome, by the way. She's a big-time activist, media mogul out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. She's been quite active with the Black Lives Matter movement and protesting against inequality, racism, and all the craziness that's happening in Canada. We had a lovely conversation a couple of days ago. She's doing an interview. She's interviewing somebody different every day, 365 days this year. And I'm honored that I was number 2 on the list. Because I could have been, 178, 237, 363, but I was number 2. So awesome. And we were only supposed to talk for about an hour. We ended up going about 2 hours and 15 minutes. You can catch that interview on her social media, on her fan page, on her pages. You can catch that interview on my Facebook fan page, and it's also on my YouTube channel. And yes, I have a YouTube channel. I haven't been using it for a lot because I've been so busy, over the past 10 years, getting married, divorced, having a child, moving 5 or 6 times, losing 100 pounds, and getting 2 different master's degrees. So, and running a record label and traveling to 48 countries. So forgive me if I didn't do as much as I probably should have been doing with the YouTube channel, but it's moving now. We're going to try to get some more subscribers and try to do some more stuff over there because it's important. All right? Going to try to do some more stuff. Jordan Henry saying, "Easy, Joe, nice. Easy, brother." You know what it is. It's my main man, Jordan, Deep Sound DJ, the legend. Daniel Taylor saying, "Just hope the UK don't privatize the NHS because don't want to be like the USA. Hope you're okay. Joe, stay safe." Brother, look, man, I'm just always safe. Safety first out here. You know what it is. But yeah, I just hope the UK doesn't privatize the NHS either, because if the UK, take a look at all the stuff that the UK is doing that's in lockstep with the United States. Look at how censorship has taken hold in the United States, and with the UK leaving the European Union 4 days ago, look at how many different communications laws are going to change as a result of the UK no longer being in the EU. And Boris Johnson is a total right winger. There's no telling what he might be able to do with regards to privatizing the NHS. Why not? Why not? And if he does that, if the NHS becomes a for-profit endeavor, wow. If it becomes a for-profit endeavor, that's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. It's a big problem. And if they go ahead and privatize the NHS, you might as well not even call it the NHS anymore. For what? For what? Now, I know the NHS is a specific type of healthcare system called a public option system, where if you don't want to buy insurance, you can just use the government insurance, and it comes out through taxes and your payments come out through taxes. And that's how the NHS gets their revenue. But if you want the option to buy private insurance and use private healthcare facilities, that option is available to you in England. One of the hospitals that I mentioned when I talked about Julian Assange was the Lister Hospital. You're like, the Lister Hospital, why does that last name sound familiar? Named for the biologist, I think he was a microbiologist, Joseph Lister, was a doctor, created that mouthwash called Listerine. He's a nice, really wonderful medical facility in England. It's a private hospital, and a lot of people go there. and you have to pay lots of money to get in there. But if you have the financial resources to do so, you can do it. You have that option in England. You don't have that option in the United States because there is no public option in the United States. It's, hey, you either have health insurance or you don't. And if you don't have health insurance, you're screwed. Unless it's an emergency situation. And this is grad school stuff talking now. If you're in an emergency, a hospital cannot refuse you. I'm going to make sure I enunciate that again. If you are in an emergency, a hospital in the United States cannot refuse you. There is a law called the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act. It's called EMTALA, the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act. And I think it was written late 80s, early 90s. I think something like that. I don't remember the exact date. But if you are in an emergency situation, or if you are a woman who is pregnant and actively in labor, a hospital cannot refuse you. They have to take you in. Now, the caveat with all of this is they have to stabilize your medical condition to the point where they can put you back on the street. You're not there. Let's say you're pregnant. You're pregnant. And, oh, my water broke. Oh, whoa, this baby's coming. And you walk into a hospital. Hospital has to take you in. They got to deliver that baby. Now, if you walk into a hospital and you're about to pop, and the hospital doesn't deliver babies, they don't have the neonatal facilities to deliver a baby, that hospital that you walk into has to put you in an ambulance and find the nearest location where you can deliver that baby. It's on the book. They have to do that. Then when you go to that new hospital, they understand it's an emergency situation. They have to go ahead and say, okay, yeah, you just had a baby. We'll stabilize your medical condition. And then once you're medically okay to leave, you got to go. See you later. Claire Oliver saying, I live around the corner from there. Assange does have some loyal supporters fighting his corner. Absolutely. He should be. He should be. Claire Oliver once again saying, been following his case somewhat. He's a real political bargaining tool, and therein lies the problem. He's a political bargaining tool. He shouldn't be a bargaining tool. He's a human being that deserves to be treated as such. That should have never been behind bars in the first place. Rude Johnson saying, death taxes, universal health care. Oh wait, hashtag do better America. Trillion with a ... T. Respect hands. Respect to you, Rude Johnson. Look, yeah. We should be having healthcare. We should have healthcare in the United States. And everybody should be getting healthcare. Everybody should be getting Medicare for All. And again, these progressives in the House of Representatives that were like, hey, you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to campaign on Medicare for All. When we get elected into office, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we're going to fight for Medicare for All because healthcare is a human right. And I want to make sure that I explain what I'm going to say next. When people say that healthcare is a human right, people just repeat that as if it's some sort of phrase that sounds cool to say. It's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, healthcare is a human right, but people don't actually understand why it is a human right. On December 10th, I want to say it was 1948, the United Nations created a document called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And within that Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I think there are 30 or 31 different articles. Article 25 says that, you know what, you're supposed to have a decent standard of living. And in that decent standard of living includes medical care. Medical care, healthcare, close enough, same thing. So when people say that healthcare is a human right, it is ratified or emboldened or adhered to as part of Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So if a government or a country or a nation does not provide health care for all of its citizens, that is a violation of human rights. You can look it up. In fact, I might even, because I'm on one today and I'm feeling good. And I got a little bit of time to chat with everybody. Article, I should have been a bit more prepared, but it's okay. This is live. And we like doing things live. Article 25, Universal Declaration. Okay. I'm going to read this to everybody. Okay. Let's read Article 25 here. Scroll down. Yeah, and there are 30 articles. I was wrong. I said 31. I apologize for the technical error. Okay, Article 25. I'm going to read this to everybody, okay? Article 25. This is from the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 25. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. Part 2, motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in and or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. It said right there, everyone has a right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, etc. And it says there, that last sentence, or lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. There's a whole lot of people who are going to be evicted as a result of this pandemic. There's a whole lot of people waiting in food lines because of this pandemic. There's a whole lot of people that have lost their health care as a result of this pandemic. And again, this pandemic was nobody's fault. Circumstances beyond his control. It says so right here. It says so right there. Then the right to security in the event of unemployment. They're talking about, hey, security, unemployment insurance, or some sort of stimulus package that's supposed to keep people financially and fiscally solvent until they're able to get back to work. The United States government let millions and millions of people's health and unemployment insurance expire. And they passed a bill giving everybody $600 stimulus checks and $300 unemployment per week until I want to say the middle of March. I want to say like 10 or 11 weeks, something like that, which is the middle of March. A right of standard living adequate. Who in their right mind thinks $300 a week for the next 10 weeks and a $600 check is adequate? Who thinks that people in the United States should be waiting in line for food boxes? Why does homelessness exist in the United States, in the richest country in the world? Why doesn't everybody have health care? Our human rights are being violated, everybody. Again, that's Article 25. I'm not making this up. That's right there on the phone. You can look it up. Just type in Article 25, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You can read all 30 articles. It's quite interesting. And again, I had an opportunity to speak at the rally yesterday. And this is something that I've done a previous video on. I spoke about an avenue to potentially give everybody in the United States Medicare for All. And in 2009, a community in Lincoln County, Montana, was poisoned by a vermiculite mine from the WC Grace Company. And this vermiculite mine put asbestosis, and basically poisoned everybody with asbestosis and mesothelioma and other lung-related illnesses. The senator at the time, the gentleman's name was Max Baucus, They said, hey, look, there's a whole bunch of people in Lincoln County, Montana that are sick. They're dying. They have all these lung issues, breathing problems. They need help. They need medical care. So the Environmental Protection Agency issued what's called an emergency declaration. They said, you know what, this is a health emergency. This is a problem. And we need to do something for these people because they are dying. They got infected with, they're suffering with asbestos and mesothelioma and other asbestos-related illnesses and respiratory problems. How can we help them? So what they did is they said, you know what? Oh, there's a section in the Affordable Care Act called Section 10323. And what we will do is we will go ahead and amend Section 1881A to include Medicare for All for anybody that has been affected with what is called an environmental exposure. So think about all the different environmental exposures that you come in contact with every day. Secondhand smoke is an environmental exposure. Air pollution is an environmental exposure. Pesticides are environmental exposure. Exhaust from vehicles is an environmental exposure. BPA plastics are an environmental exposure. Airborne viruses are an environmental exposure, no different than mesothelioma or asbestos. Lead, whether it's lead contamination from paint or lead contamination from water, is an environmental exposure. So the friendly folks in Lincoln County, Montana, and Lincoln County, Montana is the furthest northwest county in Montana. It's bordered by Idaho on the west and the Kootenai region in British Columbia. If you know the Kootenays, you know towns like, there's like the Slocan Valley, Trail, Nelson, Castlegar, Salmo. If you've ever been to Shambhala Music Festival, that's where it takes place in Salmo, and that area is called the Kootenays. And just south of that is Lincoln County, Montana. That entire county has health care for the rest of their life. No questions asked. The entire county. Everyone there gets Medicare Part A, which is inpatient hospital coverage. They get Medicare Part B, which is outpatient medical coverage. They also get the opportunity to enroll in Medicare Part D, which is prescription coverage. And if your income meets the requirements, meaning you have low to no income, you can also qualify for a program called Extra Help. That is the name of the program, Extra Help. And Extra Help is a program that is paid for by Medicaid. And it says, hey, you know what? If you don't make enough money to pay for your Medicare Part D premiums or your co-payments, or your deductibles, or your co-insurance, we'll pay for that too. We'll pay for that too. So, and everybody in Lincoln County, Montana gets Medicare Part A or B and the opportunity to enroll in Medicare Part D prescription drug coverage for the rest of their lives. No questions asked. And if you've never worked a day in your life, and if you've never paid into Medicare or Medicaid, you also get the coverage. There's no waiting period. There's no age limits, no nothing. If you live in Lincoln County, Montana, and you had a lung or respiratory issue, Medicare for All, covered for the rest of your life. What I want to know is why there wasn't a single progressive or anybody, any members of Congress, all 538 of them, not a single one of them said, hey, you know what? I live in Michigan. Or I live in Baltimore County, and I'm a representative of Baltimore County and Baltimore City, 7th District. And there's a whole lot of people on the west side of Baltimore that have lead issues, lead in the water and lead paint. That's an environmental exposure. All we need is an emergency declaration from the Environmental Protection Agency saying, hey, you know what? This is an emergency. Okay, Section 1881A, let's go for it. And what Section 1881A did or does, it creates a pilot program to give people in a specific area Medicare coverage. Just it opens a huge door for Medicare. So if you have a medical condition that is directly caused by an environmental exposure, all you need is an emergency declaration from the Environmental Protection Agency, and there's a specific act. It's the CECLRA, and I don't remember what the acronym stands for. But essentially, you need an emergency declaration. Once you get an emergency declaration, because of this environmental exposure, Section 1881A. Why is nobody in the federal government trying this scenario to get Medicare for all in their jurisdictions? No one's trying this. No one's talking about this. No one in the House of Representatives, none of the progressives said, hey, you know what? This Section 1881A thing looks like a really good idea. Let's try it. Let's go for it. Maybe I can get Medicare for all in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Ilhan Omar. Maybe I can get Medicare for all in the Roxbury projects of Boston, Massachusetts, Ayanna Presley. Maybe I can get Medicare for all for my people in New York, Jamal Bowman. Nobody even talked, none of them even mentioned this. None of them mentioned this. None of them mentioned, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's withhold our vote for Nancy Pelosi until she is willing to submit to some demands, real tangible demands. And it was one demand. It was hold your vote for Medicare for all. And it wasn't even, hey, let's go ahead and approve Medicare for all or do some Section 1881A stuff. It was, let's have a floor vote for it. They couldn't even give you the bare minimum. And the bare minimum wasn't enough. They could have said, hey, you know what? Nancy Pelosi, we're going to withhold our vote until you do these three things. Medicare for all, a federal jobs guarantee through a Green New Deal. Oh, and you see reparations for American descendants of enslaved people? We're going to go ahead and push through H.R. 40. Let's go ahead and get that on the books too. Because H.R. 40 has been sitting around a long time. And you know, us Black people, we actually deserve reparations. Because if you're talking all this Black Lives Matter stuff from all this past summer, if you want to show us how Black lives actually matter, pay us the debt you owe us, Black people. Do that. Because if you're talking about justice in the United States, a claim for justice must be made first through the lens of economics. That's how you get Black lives to actually matter. So Nancy Pelosi, when you're in the halls of Congress with a kente cloth on one knee, but you can't give everybody health care, get the fuck out. I want all of them gone. All of them. All of them. They're a waste of time, they're a waste of energy, and they're a waste of taxpayers' money. Jordan Henry saying, right. Yeah. We have 4 crises that we are dealing with simultaneously in this country. We have a biological crisis, an economic crisis, a financial crisis, and a social/political crisis. We have a government that's not doing anything for any of us. What's up, Eric? Say, what's up, Joe? What's up, Eric? What's good, brother? And these politicians have such an easy job. Such an easy job. You talk to people you disagree with. You build political coalitions. You mainstream the consensus, and then you execute the consensus with policy. It's a politician's job. I'm going to say everything I just said to you once again. That way everybody understands how, quite honestly, how simple, but yet how not easy it is to actually do what I just said. You talk to people you disagree with. You build political coalitions. You mainstream consensus, and you execute the consensus via policy. That's a politician's job. And the politicians in the United States can't even do that. And we pay every one of them a minimum of $174,500 per year. If you have a little bit more seniority, you get a little bit more money. If you're Nancy Pelosi, you're making probably about 20 to 30 grand a year. If you're one of these politicians and you do some speaking engagements, you make some money off that. AOC speaking fees, I think, are now up to $100,000 per speaking engagement. You could sell merchandise and put that in your political action committees and pocket some of that for yourself. How else do you think that Nancy Pelosi becomes a centimillionaire off a $174,000 salary? Centimillionaire is a fancy word meaning that she's worth over $100 million. Eric saying, did you get a chance to listen to Trump's phone call to Georgia yesterday? Absolutely fucked. I thoroughly agree. I don't think the government's going to make much of a stink about this because Trump is leaving the White House, allegedly, in 16 days. But I guarantee you, if this had happened last year, there's a massive movement, I think bipartisanly, to get him out of impeached. Because if Richard Nixon can get impeached for what he got impeached for, this is worse. This is considerably worse. This is a sitting president after an election saying, "Yo, look, throw out 11,000 votes. Throw them out." And by the way, if you don't do this, there's going to be hell to pay. That's essentially what Trump said over about 20 minutes or so of this phone call. If that happened in another country, and American mainstream news reported on it, we would say, oh my gosh, what a travesty. Whoever the leader of that country is has to be put out of office. They have to go. You can't have a functioning democracy or anything if you have the sitting president telling somebody in one of their other branches of government saying, hey, throw out some votes so I can maintain power and remain president or prime minister or leader of this country. That sort of stuff that Trump did yesterday on that phone call, that's stuff that you see in underdeveloped or what's called third world countries. But it's happening here in the United States. And we're supposed to be a first world country. We're a first world country with third world problems. Look at the lack of health care. Look at the homelessness. Look at the food insecurity. Look at the environmental issues that we're having. And now a sitting president who is doing everything possible to stay in a job that he actually doesn't want to do. Because I guarantee you, 2 years into this job, Trump was like, oh, geez, I got to do this? Really? I just want to sit around and play golf and tweet. And get on Fox and Friends in the morning every once in a while. And show up on Sean Hannity's show later that night. I don't want to actually do presidential stuff. For what? No. I'm going to say what I just said again. Donald Trump is fighting hard for a job that he actually doesn't want to do. The worst part about it is if he had any sort of anything politically, or if he had halfway decent political advisors that 5 months ago could have just told him, hey, look, just go ahead and tell everybody that if you get me reelected, if you reelect me, I'll keep you in your house, I'll put money in your pocket, I'll put food on the table, and we'll get rid of those student loans for you. He didn't have to do any of these things. All he had to do was say he was going to do these things. If he had said he was going to do any of those things, Joe Biden loses that election big. And Donald Trump couldn't even lie to the American people and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to legalize weed. If he had done that, he's reelected. Forget the whole let's put money in your pocket for the stimulus and jobs program and health. None of that. If he had just said, hey, yo, you know what? I'm Donald J. Trump. And if you reelect me, I'll legalize marijuana across the country. No questions asked. Executive order, first day in office. We'll go to Staples, buy some pens, sign it off. Couldn't even lie to us. Jordan Henry saying they don't give a shit. Yep, they don't. Michael Jackson said it about 25 years ago. No. Michael Jackson said it probably about 30 years ago. I think it's off the Dangerous album, where it said, all I want to really say is that they don't really care about us. Mike was right. They don't really care about us. And the way they make me feel does not turn me on. I'll tell you right now, there's a whole lot of people that aren't getting economic stimulus and they're going to be living off the wall real soon. Real soon. Charlie Bentham saying, sup, Joe? Sup, Charlie? It's good, brother. All right, I've said about all I want to say for today. Thank you all for participating. Thank you all. I like this dual streaming platform thing. Facebook fan page, Facebook profile, YouTube channel simultaneously. Efficiency. That's how we like to do it. All right, I'm going to try to do this again tomorrow. I'm fairly certain Kat and I will be going live tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. for the first episode of season 2 of the Joe and Kat Chat series. Maybe not season 2, but year 2. It's not even really year 2. We're just continuing. It's going to be, I think, episode 30. And we're going to rub the crystal keg and see what's on tap. We're going to see what's really going to happen, what we think is going to happen in 2021. So we're going to be here for a long 60 tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be back here tomorrow, probably 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking about whatever you all want to talk about. It's on your mind, it's in your heart, it's in your spirit. We can go at it and we can get it. Anytime, all the time, every time. All right? Salute to everybody involved. Thank you so much. Eric, thank you, brother. Appreciate you, my man. Jordan, word up. Claire Oliver, thank you. Appreciate everybody. All right, back for more soon. Stay safe. Peace.